It's a new day on Deep Space Nine, and it looks like Jake's mourning period for Marder is officially over. He's arranging a date with someone new to us, though apparently not to him, and he's even blowing off a previous arrangement with Eggnog to do it. The side plot will have to wait, as there's an emergency. We've an incoming ship from Bareil, and there's been a bit of an oopsie. We get there and start to remove passengers from a smoke-filled ship, one of whom proves to be Kai Sin, the Delphic douchebag. In an unexpected show of selflessness, she says the Vedek needs more help than her, and, as we only know one Vedek, it should come as no real surprise to discover Bareil has been injured. Odo calls Kira to let her know her squeeze is on the way to the infirmary. We might as well have the inevitable meeting there, so O'Brien brings his preliminary findings. He's of the opinion that it was just an accident, but Kai Sin has reason to suspect more and will only discuss it with Sisko. She's even calling him the emissary, which suggests she wants something. As Bashir engages in some brainial medicine on Bareil, which apparently involves cosplaying as a crayon for some reason, Kai Sin is talking to Sisko in his office. The reason she suspects something dodgy for the accident is because they were on their way to have a chat with the Cardigans. Apparently, they've been negotiating with an official for some time on a formal peace agreement. She thinks they've even considered apologizing for the whole 50 years of enslavement thing. Sisko is understandably confused by Kai Sin being the one to say these things. She's had her fingers in assassination attempts, bombings, and a literal coup, but she places much of the reason for this at Bareil's feet, going so far as to say he'll be instrumental in how it turns out. Maybe he was right about the position of Kai changing her for the better. We'd ask him ourselves, but unfortunately the bugger's gone and done a dead. Radiation to his head meat, according to Bashir, and Kira goes to bury herself in work to avoid dealing with things. All that's left is the autopsy to be sure what killed him, or not, as his brain has decided it's not quite as dead as everybody expected. The radiation to his head has done weird stuff, and Bashir thinks he might be able to get the whole thing running again. Some fiddling with a sonic screwdriver and a few jolts of electricity do the trick, and back Bareil comes for another go at life. Everybody is jolly at Bareil being undead, not least of which the man himself. He wants to get back to work on those Cardigan negotiations, behind the scenes anyway, as Kai Sin will be doing the talking, and Bashir agrees, as long as he still rests. Time to revisit the side plot, and Jake is telling Eggnog that their plans to play Domjot will have to wait. Rather than be upset, Eggnog is ecstatic. That's because he's assumed it will be a double date, and he can't wait to see what female has been provided for him. While Jake tries to salvage his date, Bareil and Kai Sin are making preparations. Their Cardigan contact will be arriving tomorrow, and she wants it all to go smoothly. That might be out of their hands, as Bashir has detected a little problem. The method by which Bareil was brought back was more than a little rough on his body, and it's not getting better on its own. Bashir wants to stick him back in stasis while he works on it, but admits he doesn't know how long that will take. All of which is unacceptable to Bareil. He's vital for the Cardigan talks, and without his input the whole thing will fall apart. When pushed, Bashir says there's a drug that'll let him function for a few more days, though with a 1 in 5 chance of completely shafting his internal organs up to and including his brain. McCoy might have had pills to grow kidneys, but head meat is another matter entirely. Bareil wants the treatment anyway, saying peace matters more than he does. As Bareil refuses to go into stasis regardless, Bashir doesn't have much choice. Probably just as well, as those talks are going pear-shaped without him, even with Sisko sitting in as an intermediary. The Cardigan representative is pretty confrontational, and also seemingly hung up on having Cardigan property being returned to them as part of the deal. Sisko and Kai Sin both agree that he's up to something with that one, though neither of them seem to have remembered that the station they're currently on, the one that guards a stable wormhole to the Gamma Quadrant, was built by Cardigans. Whatever the true purpose, Kai Sin is of the opinion that Bareil is the only one to guide them all through it. The double date is being held in Quark's bar, spending money there perhaps being a condition of Eggnog getting time off. The rest of the group would perhaps have preferred it if he hadn't, as treating his and Jake's dates according to Ferengi custom goes about as well as you'd expect. The whole thing explodes, with both dates leaving after they've had enough of his insults, and the resulting argument between Jake and Eggnog has them both stomp off in a huff too. There's conflict in the infirmary as well. Bareil's able to explain that prior negotiations already settled the business of Cardigan property and he's trying to pull a fast one, but Kai-Sin tries pushing him for more data and is thrown out by Bashir and Kira as a result. The treatment is not going well and his organs have already taken a beating, but he refuses to stop. Time to try a different approach then, and Bashir goes to convince Kai-Sin to continue without Bareil's help. She basically tells Bashir to balls and hides her own selfishness behind it being Bareil's decision, which convinces neither of them. Bashir calling her a selfish, cowardly shitbag looking for a scapegoat probably doesn't help, but at least it's cathartic. Sisko's heard about Jake's double date disaster. Jake's coming round to the idea that maybe humans and Ferengi don't have enough common ground, something Sisko said when he didn't want them to be friends. Fair play to the lad, though. Sisko now believes he was wrong. Jake and Eggnog have become inseparable, despite Sisko's misgivings, and he thinks they should work on it. Speaking of work, too much of it has given Bareil a turn for the worse. Kai-Sin was in there talking to him, allegedly at his request, and the cost of that chat was severely buggering up a portion of his brain. The decision on what to do next is being made by committee. Kai-Sin wants to know if we can stick brainial implants in him to make him work again, a suggestion that leaves Bashir unsure of the outcome. Kira seems of a similar opinion to the Kai, though whether that's to honour Bareil's wishes about a treaty or just to try and get him back is debatable. Either way, it looks like that's what we're going to do, despite Bashir's warning that he doesn't know how much of Bareil will still be left if he wakes up. The answer is some. He's distant, describing physical feelings as memories, and expresses no emotion. He can still work, though, and that's all Kai-Sin cares about. Let's leave them to it and wrap up the side plot. Jake's plan for talking to Eggnog involves having Odo round them both up on a spurious charge and lock them in the same cell until they've worked it out. What he didn't count on was Eggnog's familiarity with police procedure, and none of the things that should be happening, like a bollocking from his dad, are happening, so he knows this is bullshit. Jake admits the whole thing was to get them in the same room, as he wasn't sure Eggnog would agree otherwise. Jake apologizes for the way things turned out and explains that he forgot about their differences. That gets them talking, and Jake is surprised to learn that Eggnog was actually holding back on the standard Ferengi treatment of women for his benefit. They both agree that each of them have some bloody awful ideas based on nonsense cultural traditions, but decide that they can work around them, just as soon as Odo's stopped having his fun and lets them out. History has been made. A formal peace treaty between Bajor and Cardassia has been agreed, despite complaints from certain groups on both sides. Bashir's not really feeling in the party mood, and an emergency call from the infirmary doesn't improve things. The rest of Bareil's brain is shutting down. Kira wants Bashir to add more implants, but he refuses to do so, and Kai-Sin is in agreement now that she has no further use for him. Bashir thinks the process will take a few hours, and Kira chooses to stay, so we'll leave her to say goodbye to the man she loves until the next adventure. You know, I'm beginning to think that Bajoran religious figures are cursed. So far we've had a Kai who carked it and came back, only to be trapped on the planet to forever die, a monk who hanged himself on the promenade, and now a Borg Vedek. Are they sure the prophets are on their side? And it was inevitable, really, wasn't it? Bareil's life expectancy went down as soon as the show started playing with the idea of Odo becoming a solid whenever he thought about Kira. There's only so much you can do with that thread when one end has a knot tied in it, so it was inevitable that he'd be unpicked? Christ, what a tortured metaphor. And tortured is what Bareil was. You see, it was a segue all along. Bareil's situation, the implanting of positronic centers into his headmeat, is a topic long covered by science fiction, that of what differentiates us from machines. Talk of a spark of life, the euphemism for soul used here, is something that's been debated over and over. Even Trek itself can't decide on a position, which I think is appropriate for the topic. Here it's represented as cold and clinical, the loss of all that makes a person unique. Elsewhere in the same franchise, we deal with the rights of synthetic constructs and the struggle for equality simply because their machines are made of hard, dry silicon rather than soft, squishy carbon like we meatbags. There's an element of that in what Bashir says towards the end too, arguing that Bareil should die like a man and not a machine. Where do we draw the line on that one? Does giving Data a meat face also confer 15% of a soul? What's the exchange rate for steel and spirit? Not that the outcome was something entirely forced on Bareil, of course. He himself refused to let things go and be treated, a single-minded dedication to the assigned task that could almost be considered machine-like. Had he been conscious for the decision, I don't think there's any doubt he would have taken it. But it wasn't just him, was it? Kai Sin, the Delphic douchebag, certainly didn't hang back on that score and leave him to it. Despite Bareil's previous claim that the position had changed her, there's still ample evidence here to the contrary. We saw some other things about her in this one as well, her frustration at negotiating, her need for Bareil. She's someone who hungered for power, then felt constrained by the realities of actually having to deal with other people. One who used underlings as shields for the hard stuff, so there's someone to blame if it goes down the shitter. One far more interested in being the leader than in actually leading. I, for one, thank the prophets that we were provided such a clear lesson in fiction 25 years ago, so that nobody would ever be foolish enough to fall for it in reality. Let's move on to the B-plot, as it's probably worth a little discussion. It raises some questions about how far cultural norms excuse your behaviour to others. We already have some answers to how that applies on the station. Quark's previously stated he doesn't apply Ferengi norms to women from other species. While some of that is because Dax and Kira would kick the shit out of him, he's also shown it in relationships too. Eggnog choosing to not do the same makes us ask who's really in the wrong here, if anyone. The argument that he should have respected their customs when attending the date is equally valid in return by saying they should have expected it by having a date with a Ferengi. If the date had been organised by Eggnog and the women were Ferengi, would we have expected Jake to apologise for not treating them as inferior? Personally, I think it's a more simple lesson, and one very pertinent to the modern day, that freedom of expression is not freedom from consequences. Nobody's forbidding either from doing what they want to those who consent, they're just not willing to allow it in their own lives. There's a big difference between I don't want this and nobody should want this. We'll draw the video to a close with a moral then, shall we, and one provided right at the end as Kira's talking to a dying man. I got to know you and I realised you were just as confused as the rest of us. You just accepted your confusion better than anyone I've ever known. As morals go, it's a pretty good one. Learning to live with your uncertainties rather than papering over them with comforting lies is not the easy choice, but it's the one that's ultimately the least harmful and the most fulfilling. End of episode.
It's not nothing though, is it?
Well, we can't track who used the terminal.
No, but we can see who went in Quark's, can't we? There are cameras and shite on Promenade. We've seen them in Odo's office.
Yes, but they're only on when the script remembers them. Otherwise, a lot of episodes would end in the first 5 minutes. To be honest with you, I think most of that footage is just the same set of clips on repeat.
It's worth a look though, isn't it?
I suppose so. We've got nothing else.
Do you think he'll mind us taking a look?
I was under the impression we weren't going to ask.
That's the spirit. Woof.